Oprah Winfrey is still a force of nature, one of the most powerful, influential, and recognizable women on earth. But behind the billion-dollar empire, the talk show triumphs, and the inspiring speeches lies a personal story few truly understand. Tragedy has followed her quietly, in ways the public never saw coming. This is the devastating truth behind Oprah Winfrey's life. And why? Even now, her plong before she was a billionaire, a household name, or the queen of daytime television, Oprah Winfrey was just a little girl born into poverty in rural Mississippi, raised in a world marked by hardship, racism, and instability. Her early life was defined not by hope, but by survival. Oprah was born in 1954 to a teenage single mother, and from her first years, she faced a level of instability that would scar even the strongest spirit. She wore potato sacks as dresses, shuffled between caregivers, and lived in abject poverty with no sense of permanence or security. But the tragedy that would haunt her most came in the form of abuse. Oprah has spoken openly, though never without emotion, about the repeated sexual abuse she suffered as a child at the hands of trusted adults. It started at just 9 years old and continued for years, leaving her emotionally shattered, disconnected from her identity, and battling shame that would take decades to confront. At age 14, she became pregnant as a result of that abuse. The baby died shortly after birth. It was a grief so deep she couldn't speak of it for decades, and yet she endured. Somehow, through the chaos and violence, Oprah discovered a lifeline in education. She read constantly, nurtured by the rare few who believed in her potential. Books gave her refuge. Public speaking gave her a voice. Still, her trauma didn't simply disappear. It lived within her, shaping the way she viewed trust, success, and love. That pain would go on to quietly inform everything she built. While many would have been broken by such a beginning, Oprah used it as fuel. But make no mistake, the scars remained. They lingered in her private life, in her battles with weight, in her hesitations around marriage and motherhood, and in the emotional walls she built, brick by brick. The world would come to know her as strong, wise, and deeply empathetic. But few truly understood what it had taken to get there, and what it continued to cost. Pain is deeper than most realize. By the time she launched the Oprah Winfrey Show in 1986, Oprah had already shattered expectations. A black woman leading a nationally syndicated talk show in a white, male-dominated industry. It was unheard of. But the show exploded. Millions tuned in every day, not just for entertainment, but for healing. Oprah became a confidant to her viewers, a spiritual guide, and a cultural juggernaut. She was helping America heal. But was she healing herself? As the cameras rolled and the accolades piled up, Oprah buried much of her own pain beneath a meticulously crafted public persona. Her weight fluctuated dramatically, a visible manifestation of the internal battles she was fighting. Food became both comfort and torment. She would later admit that her weight wasn't just about eating, it was about unhealed wounds. No matter how many billions she earned, no matter how many homes she bought, there was still a young girl inside her, terrified and hurting. Her long-term relationship with Stedman Graham was often scrutinized. Why didn't they marry? Why didn't she have children? Oprah would later confess that while she loved him deeply, the trauma she experienced in childhood left her emotionally detached from the concept of a traditional family. "If I had kids," she once said, "they would hate me." That chilling honesty wasn't cruelty, it was awareness. She knew that her emotional wounds ran too deep to give a child the consistent love they'd need. Her decision not to marry or become a mother was met with public curiosity, sometimes even judgment. But for Oprah, it was a decision born from pain, not freedom. She poured her maternal instincts into her schools in South Africa, her mentorship programs, and her viewers, millions of whom considered her a surrogate mother figure. Behind the camera, she was also privately battling health scares, including thyroid issues and depression. Friends say there were days she barely made it out of bed, her smile on set masking a quiet war within. Even the Oprah we saw, the one laughing with Tom Cruise or crying with abuse survivors, was often still healing from a lifetime of her own trauma. Today, at 71, Oprah Winfrey is still standing tall. To the public, she remains an icon, a billionaire mogul, a media queen, a woman whose influence spans the globe. But behind the scenes, close friends and longtime associates describe a woman who has quietly grown weary. Fame, while a gift, has also become a burden, and the years have not been kind to her body, her soul, or her sense of peace. What most people don't realize is that Oprah's later years have been some of the most emotionally taxing of her life. Over the past decade, Oprah has faced the slow, silent unraveling of her physical health. Reports of thyroid dysfunction, chronic fatigue, and a worrying pattern of weight gain and loss have raised questions, not just about her body, but her mind. She's admitted to episodes of deep depression, particularly during periods of intense public pressure or personal loss. Even though she has every resource at her fingertips, doctors, therapists, retreats, the internal battles have only intensified with age. One of the most heartbreaking elements of her recent years has been the sense of aloneness. Oprah has millions of followers, legions of fans, and a trusted partner in Stedman Graham. But still, she often finds herself feeling isolated. Friends say she spends long hours alone at her estate in Montecito, sometimes going days without public appearances or contact. And though she's never needed marriage to validate her love, the absence of a traditional family weighs more heavily on her than ever before. As she watches peers become grandparents and celebrate family milestones, she has admitted, quietly, privately, that she wonders if she missed out on something essential. Even her return to television in more recent years, including her Apple TV Plus interview specials and high-profile celebrity conversations, has not been without cost. Each appearance requires emotional energy she no longer finds so easily. It's not that the passion is gone, it's that the reservoir of strength she once pulled from seems shallower now. There are whispers from insiders that Oprah may retire entirely from public life soon, not out of choice, but necessity. Her body is tired, her spirit is stretched, and her heart, though still open, carries a lifetime of unhealed ache. And yet, through all of this, she remains Oprah, a woman who, despite her pain, shows up for others, who funds entire schools, rescues children from poverty, and writes books about self-healing even while navigating her own wounds. But there's a tragic irony in that. The woman who taught millions how to heal has never been quite able to fully do that for herself. If this story has moved you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe for more emotional celebrity documentaries, and comment below, what has Oprah Winfrey meant to you? Your support helps us continue bringing you the untold truths behind the lives of Hollywood legends. At 71, the tragedy isn't that Oprah Winfrey is struggling, it's that after everything she's given the world, after all the pain she's endured and transformed into wisdom, she still carries the same questions she once asked as a child. Am I enough? Will I ever be at peace? Will anyone ever see past the icon to the woman who still hurts? Those closest to her say that some nights she sits quietly at her window, looking out over her vast property, holding a book in one hand and sipping tea with the other. And in those rare, unguarded moments, she is not the Oprah the world sees. She is simply a woman, reflecting, grieving, hoping, and trying, as always, to heal. At 71, Oprah Winfrey is no longer chasing the spotlight. These days, her life moves more slowly, more deliberately, and in many ways more quietly than ever before. But even in the stillness, the weight of her past and the intensity of her legacy continue to press down on her shoulders. For the woman who spent her life helping others find their voice, the haunting question remains, has she ever truly been heard herself? Those closest to Oprah say she lives now in a state of reflection. Her Montecito estate is vast, serene, and surrounded by natural beauty. And yet, behind the gates, it's not hard to see the symbolism of emotional distance. Oprah has always been accessible to the world, yet guarded in her soul. She once said in an interview that the biggest misconception about her is that she's always okay. But the truth? She hasn't been okay for a very long time. Her heart, by all accounts, is tired, not just from the weight of her own trauma, but from carrying the pain of so many others. For years, people would come to her show and pour out their darkest moments: abuse, betrayal, death, addiction. Oprah took it all in. She carried it with her. And now, decades later, those stories still echo. She once confessed that some interviews left her unable to sleep for days. Some traumas she absorbed so deeply they felt like her own. She still gives. She still shows up. She funds charities, supports schools, promotes books, and mentors young women. But she's not invincible, and she's starting to confront that reality more honestly. Aging has changed her. Health scares have slowed her down. Her body doesn't recover like it used to. And emotionally, there's a kind of sadness that lingers in her words now, a quiet grief. Not just for what she endured, but for what she lost in the process of building her empire. The world sees the billions, the homes, the awards, but it doesn't see the cost. Oprah never had the traditional joys of family, the deep comfort of raising children, the grounding presence of growing old with a house full of loved ones. She chose a different path, and though she stands by it, there's no denying the solitude it brings. "I have no regrets," she once said. But even in that statement, there was a pause, a catch in her voice, like she was still trying to convince herself. Despite the loneliness and loss, Oprah continues to search for peace. Meditation, spirituality, therapy, she embraces them all. She journals daily, reflects often, and surrounds herself with a small, trusted circle of confidants. She clings to moments of joy, walking through her rose garden, watching the sunrise, reading in silence, or sharing a simple meal with Stedman. Those small acts have become sacred in her life, a reminder that healing doesn't always come in grand gestures, but in quiet, consistent moments of grace. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part of her story is also the most human. After decades of giving, of pouring herself into the world, Oprah is still learning how to pour into herself. Still learning that she is worthy of softness, of rest, of love that doesn't come with conditions. Still learning that being strong for others doesn't mean abandoning her own needs. So what happens now? At 71, Oprah Winfrey stands at a crossroads. Not between fame and obscurity, but between exhaustion and peace. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in her life, she's finally choosing herself.